Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Filigree Racing. This week we're doing an unboxing of our Clutch Masters custom clutch that they went through and they built for us. We went ahead and we're proud to announce that they are one of our sponsors, and we are proud to look forward to the future that we can share with the company. Now, we went through and our platform has a lot of problems finding clutches. We've gone through spec. That was a freaking nightmare with them. We went through and we discussed it with Clutch Masters. We worked with Kevin over there to get it worked out. The process has been extremely easy with Clutch Masters. We went through, we discussed what clutch is going to work best for our situation, and we came up with going through and getting one of their newly offered 725s. We're not high horsepower, but that's enough for our track car. They give you a template, tells you to read it, tells you how to measure your bolt length, all that good stuff. They sent me a free shirt, which is nice because that's actually my size for the shirt. Makes it handy. A lot of places send me that stuff. They say that they have aluminum alignment tools. I kind of wish I would have known that. I would have went ahead and asked them if I could buy one. And then they send you a couple stickers with it. Now, with us, they actually sent us 13-inch stickers. These will be matching our 13-inch stickers that are already on the vehicle. And then here is the clutch. So right here, throwout bearing. This is the pilot bearing, is what they're called. They sent plastic tool. You want to be careful with the teeth. They're steel, but you still want to be careful with them. Now, I should be wearing gloves when touching clutch discs. You don't want your grease and oil from your hands getting onto the clutch pads. So you have the pressure plate, the pack for it to make sure that it stays dry. You have your centerpiece, your second disc, and then lastly, you have the aluminum flywheel. All right, so we've got the engine here. What you're going to want to do is first you're going to want to go ahead and measure your distance right here. You want no more than a 0.08 or a 0.1 depth from the bottom of the hole to the bottom of the bolt. So what you're going to do is you screw this in as far as you can get it by hand. Don't torque it. Then you measure your distance from here to the face of the crank. And then what you're going to want to do is you go over to your flywheel and you measure the distance of your flywheel on how thick it is, and you subtract the distance from the flywheel from the distance of this, and you want no more than that 0.08 or 0.1. Now, next what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove your pilot bearing. We actually have a pilot bearing tool removal. we just used one of our hooks with our slide hammer and beat it out. We then reinstalled the pilot bearing that came with our clutch, and that's now installed. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and mount your flywheel at this point. Kind of sucks working on the ground, but it is what it is. You're going to slip that on, line up your holes. Now, you'll notice I'm doing these by hand. That is the way you should be doing it. You should not be using power tools to zip these in, especially an impact. You damage your crank and, well, you're pretty much rebuilding the engine at that point since you have to pull the crank. So, cinch these down by hand. Once they are cinched down by hand, not sure where I picked grease up from, but once they're cinched down by hand, you want to go ahead and torque each one of these in a cross pattern to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so they're all hand tight. Our torque wrench is set to 20 foot-pounds. And at this point, you want to go ahead and you want to torque all of them. We have a breaker bar on the front side of the crank so that it doesn't spin. And you're going to want to take these out one at a time. And this is where you put your Loctite on. You don't want to do your Loctite early. You do not want Loctite between the flywheel and the crankshaft. You want absolutely nothing between the two in order to get it to work right. I actually kind of like these Loctite sticks. They're not as messy. Now, what you want to do is you don't need a lot. There's absolutely no reason for you to go through and coat the entire thing in Loctite. But you want enough that it's going to work. So there's just a little bit on there. That's enough. You get it in, and then you want to re-torque it to that 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so here you have all of them tightened down to 20. Now you're going to want to go ahead and change your torque wrench. This particular engine calls for 36 for the next torque. So you want to move it slow and precise. You don't want to make hard, jerky movements. And you're going to want to continue that cross pattern. Okay, so our torque wrench is set to 55. So you're going to want to go ahead and continue that pattern. So here's the final round, in which case they require them to go up to 80 to 85.
So that goes ahead. We have the pilot bearing in, our flywheel is Loctited and torqued down. So now we're ready for the clutch itself. Go ahead and clean that to get it nice and clean. You're going to want to mostly focus on the mounting surface, which is that right there. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clean your clutch discs, not the discs, but the pressure plate and stuff like that. I've already cleaned these, but we'll take it apart so you can see it. But you're going to want to clean this area here since that's your pressure plate. This right here, you can see it says pressure plate side, so it goes down. This right here is your ring, and then this right here says flywheel side right there. So that goes on just like that. These have already been cleaned. So you're going to want to go ahead, put it on, and then it simply goes on. Now, as far as these go, you're going to want to use a little bit of Loctite, thread it in. These here, they get torqued down to 20. You want to make sure that that remains nice and loose. And then we already have our torque wrench set up for 20. Now we're ready to go ahead and mount the transmission. All right, so now we have our transmission side. This is our bearing, and it essentially slides on. That just put that on. Kind of a fight to get the forks to go on a little bit, but it's on. You're going to want to wipe any excess grease off, as you don't want to risk it contaminating the clutch. But that completes it. As you can see, the fork goes inside the bearing. It's got two little spots. It goes inside the bearing. Works as it should. With luck, we should be able to pop it on. Make sure that your transmission's in neutral, of course. The transmission's together. Now we just have these bolts. It's easier to torque these outside the vehicle rather than inside. These are M10 1.5s, so they should be torqued around 35 to 37 or so foot-pounds. 3 back here. And then there is one right here. All right, that goes ahead, that buttons up that. Now, we're gonna go ahead and bolt on the starter. All right, that bolted on the starter. Now, we will be going through and running these. And getting all of this set up and in, but we're gonna do that as part of the next video of dropping in the engine.